This is the receiving vault, which was a common feature to Victoria natural landscape cemeteries because they began before the advent of funeral homes. So if you had a death in the family, particularly an unexpected death, and you did not know where you wanted to bury the family member, say you had just moved to this new town and you didn't know whether you wanted to take the family member back home or whether you wanted to buy a lot in the cemetery in the new town, or maybe the weather was inclement and you couldn't dig a grave. For some reason, it was not convenient to have the funeral right then and the burial right then. You had to have a place to put the body. And the only place at that time was at home. They often prepared the body, I've got letters that tell about this, on the dining room table. And it tells how they turned the pictures to the wall and they draped the mirrors, just the different ways they prepared the houses for death. And they tell about putting the banquet ends to the big dining room table. This was for Charles Doherty, who was a very tall man, and he was prepared for burial there on the dining room table. And we know that he's buried here, but he doesn't have a marker in Oconee Hill Cemetery. This was also used in later years when they were restoring lots, and they would disinter the graves, store the vaults in here temporarily while they repaired the lots with retaining walls and then put the graves back in. Or sometimes a family would decide to sell their lot and they disinterred the member, held them here while they shipped them to another part of the United States to reunite them in another family lot. So it had a lot of different functions. But then funeral homes got started in the late 1800s and rendered this basically an unnecessary space. It's dug out of the hillside and it has a domed ceiling. It's a very cool place, so it was an appropriate storage place. And at the time I first knew this in the late 60s, when we were into the hippie movement, there was a cot and a jug in there, and we had trouble keeping the young people out of here, but now they've got a very stout chain and a padlock, and we haven't had any inhabitants of the receiving vault for several decades now.